All right, folks, this is Terry, and I hope you hear me because I am live and in color. Hope you all are enjoying the Martin Luther King holiday. I am in the greenhouse, and I wanted to just show you that I have been sweeping. But I also have a handyman coming today, yay, that is going to fix the motors on my fans that are temperature activated and suck the hot air out in the summer. But besides bragging about how I've cleaned up somewhat, swept somewhat, still have a lot more to go. I wanted to make a video for Linda Von, forgot the last part of her name now, Von Guard. Wait a minute, anyway, Linda asked me about my BRASSAVOLAS and how I view them, my conditions. So this is really for her, and it's for those who are curious about BRASSAVOLAS and how I grow them, the culture, all of that. And I have already said in numerous videos that these are touted to be beginner orchids. Nodosa in general, although I am generalizing all of this talk about culture to Cattleyas in general, which is what BRASSAVOLAS generally are. They are Cattleyas and are grown as such. They are epiphytic. BRASSAVOLA nodosa is specifically from Florida, Mexico primarily. They can be found at sea level and also up into the cooler edges of the cloud forests. There are some that are cooler growers, but my tip is I never got a BRASSAVOLA to bloom until I put them outside for the summer. And there are several reasons for that, besides the sunlight, which obviously is more intense and uh, more in line with what they would get as long as you acclimate them. But you do want to give them as much as they can take. And the plant will tell you when it is getting too much of whatever, whether it's rain, whether it's light, even humidity, because in my climate, which is the Midwest, we have the most humid and hot summers. And so that is my dilemma because they don't want constant heat. They want a break in the evening when the sun goes down, although it does rain, obviously, around the clock. Can't control that. But they want somewhat of a break so that they can perspire, and that includes humidity and temperature. They want it. They can take it 90s during the day as long as they're getting rainforest, water-like conditions. So you have to moderate that accordingly. The higher the temperature, the higher the humidity, and the more the water. So if it is cooler and grayer, then they get less of everything. And as I said, they do like that temperature variation from day to night. And that is with a lot of orchids, not just Cattleyas, BRASSAVOLAS, but they are very sensitive to just constant humidity, constant heat, constant rain. That is a fast subscription or prescription for black rot. They also like decent humidity, as I've said, and they need good air movement. Imagine them high up in the trees in the canopy, shaded by the summer fronds or leaves of the tree that they are attached to by their roots, like such. In the wintertime, those leaves are gone because of the coldness, so they're getting more sun, but and they're getting less water as well. Not a complete dry winter, but less, as long as their growths have stopped. Now, being that it is past the new year, and they kind of go on that Halloween to February 14th, Valentine's Day thing, where that is the dormancy period, and they do get a lot less. So it is nearing the end of that, which is when I will switch to a different kind of fertilizer, which will be the growth fertilizer, because the bloom fertilizer is what I will be using now, since they are resting and building up their energy for blooming in the spring or the fall. So that's sort of their cycle. They put forth new growths in the spring, and then growths or blooms, and then they grow, grow, grow. They're watered copiously. The roots are allowed to dry off. They're not allowed to sit in water. Hey there, Grow Buddy 420. Thanks for watching. But anyway, they also, another tip is you can put them in pots, but the media is important. And really, if it's a ceramic pot, it's best to just secure them inside of that and let the roots roam, because in this, with ceramic and with leca and some woods, this is a chala wood, it can retain some moisture within the cracks and the material, but it also, more importantly, allows for the roots to dry and not be bogged down and sitting in a water bath, if you get my drift, because that will kill off the roots. The roots want to be free to the air so that they can dry quickly, which is why I have begun to mount all of my BRASSAVOLAS. Some I can manage in a pot as long as the material inside of it is porous, leca, stone. But for the most part, they want free drainage so that they are watered copiously and the water drains off of them and the roots are able to dry frequently. Frequent watering, frequent drying, and change of difference in temperature from day to night. Here's my little nodosa up here that I've had for a few years, sentimentally to my mom, Gladys, and it has attached to another mount, and that is a solution to somewhat remounting a plant, putting it in on top of a bigger mount, securing it in, and then praying that the roots wander and attach itself to the other mount. So, another thing, in the winter time, when you give them less, fall and winter, when you give them less, and I don't see any BRASSAVOLAS in here, but you want to make sure that you soak them. Here's my cuculladas. Here's one here, and here's another cucullada. There's the tag. So you want to make sure that I soak them, because you're going to give them a bit of a rest or a bit of a time period in between whatever. This is also a good time to look for bugs, scale, and do any repotting that needs to be done. But for the most part, that soaking for a period of maybe a half an hour really soaks the mount really good and gives those roots a really good watering, because it's going to be a nice little break from it for a while, and that will give them enough to last them through that period, because they really don't need much, just enough to keep their pseudobulbs from shriveling, really. And then when they start showing new growths, sheath spikes or whatever, that's when you begin watering more. I think I've sort of covered everything. Quickly. Still waiting on my peach bird. And I have this peach bird that I mounted, which is a division of that one. And it put up this growth, and it's got that sheath, but this actually has some scale that keeps resurfacing. So I've got to make sure that I take care of that. But like with this has been on here for just maybe a year or two. Hey there, Linda. This is for you. And I'm almost getting ready to get off of here. But yeah, I've given some of my tips, and for success, I'm glad you caught it. But anyway, it's on tape, and for everybody else, Hopefully it's been helpful. Um, but yeah, make sure you acclimate them to the light and give them as highest light as possible. Some require their leaves, I've found, to be, they need it to be on the redder side. Like, for instance, Bepi Phoenix. And I would say another one is Gyrax. That's my Kiku back there. That I don't, Kiku is back there. That has always been a little bit darker leaves because according to the books, you don't want them to be sort of an olive green. You want them to be more of a lime green color, chartreusey, not chartreuse, but more of a forest green, or but not as dark. But some of them require their leaves to be purple in order for them to bloom. And that's pretty much it for BRASSAVOLAS. Um, yeah, they can do well in pots, but I would say the material has to be porous, no sphagnum whatsoever. And if you get a new BRASSAVOLA that is in a pot or even in a cone, I would more or less make sure that there is not that little piece of sphagnum in the middle, because that will kill the plants. That is generally what they will put in the middle to pot up from flasks. Um, and even if you have a mounted BRASSAVOLA that has sphagnum underneath it, I would take it off or just pick it off with tweezers or whatever until it was all removed, because that will retain too much moisture for the roots to have access to, and it will root. It will rot. But anyway, I'm welcome to questions, and I think I have answered them all. My humidity generally in the wintertime, I try to keep it in here, and I know I've taken all my hygrometers away, but I try to keep it in the 70%. It says it's 77% on that humidifier, but I just know I haven't watered in here. So it could be accurate. Um, we are going to be getting some rain all day. It's supposed to, well, yeah, it has rain. I can see the drops on the roof. But anyway, this is one that I want to point out, and I am planning on doing a video on difficult CATTLEYA, BRASSAVOLAS, and this one I'm sure is one that you all can relate to. Booth Lee Venice, and you see how it is taped up in several areas because it is the wonkiest plant alive, but because of the flowers being so amazing, rich, beautiful, it's one that if you like cattleyas, you will suffer fools for that. Yeah, their roots, if you, yeah, that's because you can see on the ones that are still in bark, their roots are wandering out of the bark. Even when they're even when they're mounted on, they do attach, but there are a lot of aerial roots as well. So you really have to have that humidity to maintain the plant in between the waterings, even though they're going to get some humidity from the mount, staying a little bit moist like a sponge. This is another wonky sucker. You can see how it's growing sideways. But it's got some sheaths on it, and it did bloom for me. I think I saved it from cold damage. This is another BCT, Hawaii Red Drop. That's not Bepi, BCT. So maybe it's BCT. Brassiolatente, that's the culprit. But Boothby Venice, Kuai Red Drop, there's others that are wonky, but they're still really, really nice. And we suffer fools for them. But that's a whole nother video. And I'm really done with talking about the Prassavolas. But yeah, you really have to take particular care as far as pests. Let me just mention that once to make sure that you check these sheets. Now, some people, uh, like Zane, I believe Zane, who had that big uh, epidendrum parkinsonianum that I saw maybe on Instagram. But anyway, Roger is one who's almost obsessive about pulling off sheaths. And I was, until I figured out why, because that's where the bugs hide. And the Savalas, Cattleyas, are really susceptible to those sheaths, hiding scale and other, mostly scale, mealies usually are on the surface, but that's just something else to pay particular attention to, especially if new growths are looking weak and stunted when the plant is overall generally pretty healthy. That's a sign that it could be some kind of an insect, mostly scale or mealybugs. These plants are highly susceptible. Their new growths are very tender, and they attract mealies and scale like flies on poop. But anyway, folks, and Linda, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you learned a little bit of something and what my conditions are and how I grow my Brassavolas. A little bit more detail. But as you can see, I have all of my shade cloth off for my Brassavolas. If there have been some that have shown signs where they are getting burned, then I move them back underneath either the vine, my bougainville, or move it back underneath shade cloth. But generally, especially in the wintertime, they want to be high up and getting as much light as possible because there's very little of it to begin with. But I think I answered everything or told everything. And so I'm just going to let it go there and get back to what I'm doing. Got the repair guy coming to fix my hands, as I said. And next thing is hopefully I can convince him to begin on the deck out there, perhaps, since it's getting a little bit warmer. It's going to be 50 something today. And then we'll see. Hopefully I'll get these areas. And this is really secure, this part. But he'll probably have to do the whole thing because I'm sure it's rotted all the way. But you can see these areas where the board is here. There's areas where, critters can get up. And then there's a plate over there. And actually where that bag is sitting over a hole. And all of that is kind of covering because that used to be a planter when this was a porch. And that when I put the greenhouse over this area and left that exposed, I had this huge, which I really need to clean up, this big, huge palm that goes way over there. So you can see it suffering as well, but I just need to cut off all that dead stuff and let it start putting up new. But it's been in there since the greenhouse. And it used to be in the dining room. And it was planted in the middle, and both sides of the fronds went from one end to the other, so it had to be moved. So it was conveniently placed here. But that's another place that's susceptible and accessible to, in and out from critters. And that's why I got stuff kind of, blocking it because I'm a wimp. But anyway, that's it for my rambling, and thank you all for watching. If you like this video, and again, folks, there are so many of you who watch my videos, I guess, and aren't subscribed, about 85%. So, you might as well just hit the button and give me some love. Anyway, thanks for watching. Enjoy your orchids. Bye.